Hi everybody, JG Pastor Jack here from Grassroots Motorsports Magazine, coming to you tonight from the Embassy Suites in Greenville, South Carolina. Now, if Greenville sounds familiar to you, that is because it is the home of the BMW Performance Center, as well as a large BMW assembly plant. We are here today because of BMW Test Fest 2019, where BMW gets a bunch of journalists together, a bunch of cars together, and combines the two, and hilarity ensues, basically. One of the cool cars we got to drive today was the new BMW Z4 M40i, which is essentially the twin to the Toyota Supra. And the first question we get whenever we talk about the Supra, and now whenever we talk about the Z4, is how do they compare? Which is the better car? Which car is more suitable for how I am driving it? And actually the second part of that question is more accurate. It's very hard to determine which car is better because they both have seemingly different missions. So let's talk a little bit about the Z4 M40i we drove today. First off, it is a virtual twin to the Toyota Supra except for a convertible top. BMW rates the 3-liter 6-cylinder in the Z4 M40i at 382 horsepower. I'm checking my notes right here, whereas Toyota rates their 6-cylinder engine, which is the same 6-cylinder engine, at 335 horsepower. Now, the engines feel, for all intents and purposes, identical. I really don't understand where the different rating comes from. If I had to provide a professional opinion, I would say that Toyota is underrating the horsepower rating on that engine, while BMW is probably more close to the actual number of that engine. Performance-wise, straight line, going down the road performance, they are virtually identical. They both have the same ZF 8-speed gearbox. They're both the same car, so of course they have the same ZF 8-speed gearbox. Fantastic gearbox, but does have some limitations. It's actually one of our more preferred sort of new generation of semi-manual automatic gearboxes. For the autocrossers among us, the shortness of the bottom 3 gears is going to be a little bit problematic. Second gear only runs to about 55 miles an hour in these cars, and third gear is not really as close to second as we might like it, so it does have some limitations there. For the track enthusiast though, the gearbox is much better, much more suitable to higher speed track use than it is to an autocross situation where you really like a car to be able to hold second gear up into 60, 65, even 70 miles an hour to minimize the amount of shifting you have to do and to always make sure you're in the proper area in the torque band. So on slower, tighter autocross courses where you can stay in second might be better, or on faster, more open stuff where you can use third gear, can actually get into the meat of the power band in third gear, might be a little bit better. Inside the cars, again, different missions here. The Toyota feels a little more cramped to me, even with the top up on the Z4. The Z4 feels like an easier car to physically get into, and it feels roomier inside. The Z4 is a much more pleasing interior aesthetically, I think. It's a little bit simpler than the Toyota. It's just a little cleaner, a little more of that classic BMW look that I think it's going to age better than the aesthetically anyway, than some of the detailing on the Toyota. Seats are a little more supportive in the Toyota for some body types. I think the seats in general are better in the Z4 for a wider range of body types. I found them more comfortable, and I found them really fairly supportive as well. I think the Supra seats had a little bit more lateral support, but you definitely paid for that lateral support in some comfort. And while they had good sort of mid-torso lateral support, not great upper body lateral support, and that's something I definitely value in a car with high performance. So we actually had the chance to get the Z4 out on track today at the BMW Performance Center, and it was a very, very capable track companion. Now, we also had the chance to get the Supra out on track a few months ago at the launch of the 2020 Toyota Supra at Summit Point Motorsports Park, and the cars compare very favorably, and down to the same set of Michelin Pilot Super Sport tires on both cars. The DNA crossing over from one car to the other is definitely there. They feel more alike than they do feel different. I'm going to give a little bit of the edge on track to the Toyota. It has a little bit sharper responses. It's a little bit more present. It's a little bit more immediate in its responses. The BMW is perfectly predictable, perfectly maneuverable, very, very nimble, but it does not have the really intense, sharp edge that the Toyota does. And I think that really all comes down to tuning, because the chassis are nearly identical. I think there is just some tuning differences, probably in some of the shock settings, that provide just a little bit more compliance in the BMW. It still is a car you can do fantastic things with on track. One thing I always like about BMWs in a high performance situation is you can change the attitude of the car with any input. You can affect it with steering, you can affect it with throttle, or you can affect it with brakes. Very cool that you have the ability to brake very deeply into a corner in the Z4 and create slip angle with all four tires, and then use very little steering and use a little bit of throttle, or use a neutral throttle and use a little bit of steering to then control the attitude of that car in the corner. Real testament to the engineering of those chassis. They can do the same thing in the Supra as well, but those initial bites on turn-in feel a little bit more abrupt to me in the Supra. It just feels like they've taken some of the edge off the Supra with the Z4. Now, if I had never driven the Supra before, maybe I would have a little bit different opinion of the Z4. And I like the Z4; it's fantastic. But when compared to the Supra, it takes a little bit of that razor sharpness out. So, getting back to the original question, which is better? Really, really tough question. I think the answer to that really comes down to how are you going to use the car. If you're going to the track, I think the Supra is going to be the weapon of choice. If it's something that you're going to drive on the street more often and be an occasional track car, I think the Z4 is going to be the choice. Now, the Z4 is going to run you about $10,000 more option for option and spec for spec than the Supra is. Supras are specking out high 50s, around $60,000. The Z4 in a comparable spec seems to be specking out with the M40i model, high 60s, around $70,000. So you're getting a more premium experience with the nicer interior materials, a lot of technology inside the car, but you're definitely paying for it. But you're also getting a car that's perfectly capable of going to the track and perfectly capable of driving around on those non-track weekends and being very, very satisfying. So, in conclusion, what's the better car? They're both really fantastic cars, the Supra and the Z4. I think the decision comes down to how are you going to use it. The Supra is a little bit more of a honed track weapon. The Z4 is a little bit more of an all-purpose, very track capable, but also very street comfortable vehicle. And yeah, that's where we're at. Very honored BMW invited us up here to drive this thing, and very excited now that I've had a chance to drive both these vehicles that I think we should all be thankful are in the performance space right now, because they are both exceptional cars, even though it's kind of one car. All right, folks, thanks very much for watching. I'm JG Pasterjack. We will see you again on all of our fantastic Grassroots Motorsports content. Check us out on the web at grassrootsmotorsports.com, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and do all of that stuff as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.